наверное.
Costs around £10,000 a year to send your kid here, so you would expect a few magic tricks when he left. Now this bridge we're coming under, nicknamed the Wibbly Wobbly Bridge, it's actually the Blackfriars Millennium Bridge, and it got its nickname from its grand opening in 2001. When the Queen had opened it and gone home, the bridge was closed around 3 hours later, deemed unsafe by the Metropolitan Police because people were quite literally falling over on it. The bridge was swaying from the weight of the people and the wind didn't help. So what they did, they closed it, pumped some more money into it, put some supports along the bridge and opened it a couple of years later. It's completely safe now to walk across and it links the South Bank to the City of London. Nicknamed the nicest nation of theatres in the UK. Now over to the left, can you see how high the River Thames is at the moment? It's almost touching the tops of them green lions' heads. Over to the left, can you see them with the rings in them? These are the early flood warnings for London. They're no longer in use, around 13 miles in that direction. We've got to the Thames barrier located in Woolwich. But in the 1800s they didn't have that and they put these in place. And there's a little saying, it says if the lions' heads are drinking, then London is sinking. And if the lions are completely ducked, then London is well and truly flooded. Now,
let's start this one. This is Sherlock Spectre.
Thanks. Okay.
This is Sherlock.
Это мы в музее Шерлока Холмса. Это подразумевается, что Божинство. Ясно, видно. Наталья, смотри на меня. Улыбка или что-то там. Я с Даником захватил. Ну ладно, чуть заранее.
У нас времени точно, они раньше бьют, чем здесь появилось. Я стояла так с пальцем, наверное, тоже пытался. Mira Mario, mira las 5 minutos, fue regular.
The River Thames, and the first one, it was constructed by the Romans around 3,000 years ago. The one before this, it was sinking into the London mud, so they sold it to an American man for £2 million. He took it down stone by stone and shipped it to the Arizona desert where it lays today. Has anyone seen the bridge by any chance? It is there, believe me. Now coming up on the right hand side, London's very own floating warship. It was constructed in 1938, the same shipyard that the Titanic was built in Belfast, Harland and Wharf. And if you look to the bow of the ship, that's the very front.
So thank you so much.
That's a fish. Fish.
Oh, really?
Somebody's throwing some in the Anyone see their way? Look, there is
Yeah, look at India. India, look at India. India, look at. Look there. Wow.
Let us try.
Sì, quello sta riposando.
Li ha messi da soli, si vede. Quelli da gialli non crepano.
Hanno abbastanza cibo.
Wow, che strano, mai visto così.
Manco io, mai. Che rasa che gli fa, guarda. Non lo sfiora, ma...
Enorme però. Per loro nell'acqua è tutto semplice.
Io voglio vedere questi squali, mi sto facendo.
Guarda quanto è grosso.
Sto facendo la pipì addosso.
Devi fare pipì?
No, perché i squali, lo crei.
Ma per l'emozione o perché ti
Squali
scappa?
con
Guarda, questo qua è l'isola di Pasqua, non c'è il totem statua. Ce n'è un'altra qua, ce n'è 3 di statue. 1, 2, 3.
So the big fish. You see Mr. Ray? Say hi. Say hi. Oh, look.
Ty kareta Orłowska. Ty kareta Orłowska.
Widzisz tu żelwę?
No, ty kareta. Nie, to nie to.
No, a to spotkałem tutaj problem.
Stała aici până pleacă cineva, că nu o să stai aici tot timpul.
Szkoda,
O, ten miał gwiazdę. Tylko. Chcę. Ja szukałam gwiazdy, taka dziwna. Nie понравится там
Oni jsou friendly. Rejnoka jsem tam někde viděla.
Já taky tady proplouvala.
Tamhle je, nahoře.
Jo, počkáme.
Tak já vám, Marťo, tak já ti udělám tu...
Ty jo, ježiš, jak jsem proháněl. A tam je další.
Tak já možná udělám nějaký krátký video.
No, možná tohle se, no. A teďka ti tam pluje. A k tobě plujou dolů. Hele, tady, přímo na tebe pluje.
Просто так хорошо позировал.
Угу, я сфоткал несколько раз.
Вон еще они. Смотрите, как кошки. Вон еще, синие.
Ой, все, она съела. Давай еще и
А вон крошки.
ложи около себя, да?
Слабо из рук взяла, да? Пугливая. Опять позировать, смотри.
Угу.
Классический кадр вообще. Белка в интерьере. Ты видел, когда они так делают? Не, мы видели в этом, там у нас в Омске, за городом. Там есть специальный турбат из билет. Там что-то играть. Там были белки. Но они, кажется, были более рыжие, да, Павел?
Да, у нас рыжие белки.
Ну, оставим.
Ест?
Видишь?
Да, она взяла и ест. Но сразу птицы прилетают, смотри-ка.
Положи на асфальт, чтобы они вышли сюда.
Кушает?
Ой, такая смешная. Сеня, давай.
А что ты дал? Печеньку.
Ну, редко здесь.
Понравилась ей печенька.
Так, в зоопарк мы посидели. Да еще? Положи здесь. Вот сюда.
Да, положи здесь, пусть сюда. Не, здесь ложи.
Да.
А, чтобы она увидела, да? Отойди чуть-чуть. Еще одна бегает. Вон, о, еще одна на дереве уже. Положи, на тебя вон с дерева видят.
А, еще идет, Тань, большая.
А куда ты бросил? Так а где ты положил? А, вот. Но они отбегают покушать.
Ой, какой классический кадр.
Ага.
Белка на дереве. Покрупнее. Это видно больше, не кушает. Так, а здесь мусор, да? Ложите оставить залег ухма.
О, одна другую гоняет. Смотри, встала. О.
Да, она идет. Кажется. Трусишки.
Да, поняла, что это еда.
Все, Валя. Буквально кому.
Не шевелимся.
Богданит.
Ничего, голод возьмет свое. Нет. Струсила.
Building. Now this building has a nickname, this part of Scotland Yard, it's known as the Streaky Bacon Building. The reason why it's called the Streaky Bacon Building is because the top part looks like streaky bacon. But I find your nickname. See that to the right hand side.
Нет? Он был прикольный кадр, если бы не было, я не успела.
So here we are, number 19 for Westminster Pier for the river cruise. And to stay around Westminster area, number 19, here we are. And nobody coming down. So then this very grand and very beautiful building here in front of us, you'll see it here in front of you, is the House of Commons, one of two of the Houses of Parliament. This is where the Prime Minister and the politicians debate. To the left there is Westminster Bridge. We're going to be going over the bridge in a moment. Westminster Bridge is painted green to represent the green leather seating in the House of Commons here to the left. And then you'll see here, if you look above you to the left-hand side, this huge landmark here towering over us. It has to be the most famous landmark in this city, and you'll see it there to the left-hand side, Big Ben himself.
That bridge was last week.
A couple weeks ago. It's what happened.
Big Ben.
Ну, вот это, видишь?
Now I do get the question quite a lot, where does Big Ben come from? Why is it called Big Ben? Big Ben is actually the name of the bell inside the clock tower.
Мы едем в лондонском такси. Тут такие вот управления сидений есть, вот так вот добавляются. Я сижу на таком же. У водителя нету здесь сидения, тут нельзя сесть. Все едут просто неправильно. Все едут навстречу. Что-то страшное. Водить не получится вообще здесь машину. И, конечно, красные автобусы и черные водители. Дорогая, немножко впечатлений о Лондоне.
Замечательно. Очень красиво.
Ух ты, желтый автобус. Круто.
Anne White, and all these houses painted as Queen Anne White are all owned by one man, Hugh Grosvenor, the same man who owns the area. He owns every single house painted cream, hence why he's worth £9 billion. So most people rent off the Grosvenor family. As you can imagine, rent off Hugh Grosvenor. If you want to rent a house in Belgravia, don't forget this is not even your house. If you want to rent a house in Belgravia, the average price is just over £5,000 per week, over £5,000 a week, that's over £20,000 a month, over £200,000 a year. So we're now leaving Belgravia Hotel here to the left-hand side. And right at the top of the Lanesborough Hotel, you'll find the Royal Suite. The top floor is the Royal Suite. If you want to stay inside the Royal Suite at the Lanesborough Hotel for one night in the Royal Suite will cost you, wait for this, £31,200 per night. Over £30,000 a night to stay inside the Royal Suite of the Lanesborough Hotel. You get 7 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, you get your own valet, someone who actually dresses you, you get your own chauffeur, who takes you around town, wherever you want to go. Have to pay for breakfast the next day. Breakfast is not included, can you believe that? Have to pay £60 for a luxury style breakfast. We do get a free newspaper, guys, come on, that free newspaper, surely that's what seals the deal. So it's just behind us there, the Lanesborough Hotel. Of course, it's the most expensive place to stay in London, £31,200 per night. So we're now coming back down the road Piccadilly, the Hard Rock Cafe here to the left-hand side. There it is on the left, very famous restaurant, bit of a queue going inside there today. Established in 1971 by 2 Americans who just wanted a decent burger in London. You'll see here to the right-hand side Green Park. It's the smallest royal public park in London. It's around 53 acres, and it's only a short 5-minute walk through Green Park to go to Buckingham Palace. Now, if you want to go to Piccadilly Circus, if you want to go to Shaftesbury Avenue, Leicester Square, Chinatown, if you want to walk around Soho area, stay around the Piccadilly Circus area, then you can get off at the next stop, number 1 Green Park. And it's only a 7-minute walk straight down in front of you, straight down the end of the road is Piccadilly Circus. It'll be a lot quicker walking than staying on the bus. It can take about half an hour on the bus or a 7-minute walk, so you can do that. If you want to get the westbound Blue Line, if you want to go down to South Kensington, if you want to go to Kensington Palace or towards Kensington Gardens, past Notting Hill area, up to Paddington Station, you need to get off at the next stop, number 1 Green Park, and get the Blue Line, the Blue Route, the westbound Blue as it's known. And you can get the westbound Blue Line. I'll show you where to get the westbound Blue Line when we get to number 1 Green Park in a moment. But that will take you towards Kensington area. The red line does not go to that area, so if you want to go towards the left-hand side of your map, you are going to have to get off at the next stop and get the westbound Blue Line. We'll be coming up to our stop number 1 Green Park in the next couple of minutes. And number 1 Green Park, you're going to be losing me as your tour guide, you're going to be losing Everton as our driver, you're going to get a new tour guide, new driver, and go on the red line all over again. If there's anywhere that you've missed on the red line, anywhere wants to go on the red line, then just stay on the red lines and enjoy some more live English commentary from another guide. I'll either ask you to stay on this bus, you may have to transfer onto another bus to continue with the red line. There might be another bus that's leaving quicker, so I'll let you know when we get to number 1 Green Park what to do to get the quickest red line possible. The last red line of the evening is at 6 p.m, 6 o'clock. That is the last red line that will be leaving here at stop number 1 Green Park, and red lines are leaving every 10 minutes today, so there won't be much time to wait at all. There might be a few minutes wait though when we change tour guides and change drivers, but it won't be very long. You've got the Ritz Hotel there in front of you, named after Cesar Ritz, built in the early 20th century, back in 1906. Is where Margaret Thatcher spent her last hours inside there. She died inside the Ritz Hotel. And Paul and Linda McCartney had their first nights of the honeymoon inside there back in the 60s. Quick recap on what to do and where to go. Down to the left-hand side there, 7-minute walk straight down. At the end of the road, you'll find Piccadilly Circus, Leicester.
Танюха, это специально для тебя. Это King Cruise. King's Cross. И мы сейчас идем искать платформу. Пойдемте. А? Entrance only. Мы не были, мы не знаем. А, не знаю. Может быть. Только с билетом. Короче, вон она, вон она. Это вон там. Вот, видишь? Вот он проход. Где 6? А, 7, 6, 7, 5. Это не то. Все, пауза. Танюха, проблема. Мы не можем найти 9-ю платформу. Будем искать дальше. Платформа 9, 11. Ага. Ладно, уже лучше. Танюха, мы идем ищем. Даник здесь, я тут. Вот они, платформы, вон они. Это шутка. Это не шутка. Это вход на эту платформу. Это столько людей стоит. Черт! Танюхин. А? Фиг зайдешь туда. А, окей. Да. Я хочу найти реально платформу. Короче, это обманка. Мы идем реально ищем платформу. 9. Вот она. 9 и 10. Тут можно пройти. Можно пройти? Надо билет? Попробуй пройти, Дань. Даня. Думаешь, закроется? Не, люди просто ходят.
Не, написано имя Таулили Зебело Баймутха стоят только как нас.
Да, но ты же не поехал никуда. Не, смотри, люди ходят. Наталья. Короче говоря.
Павлик, офигеть, а как так народ?
Ну просто. Танюха, мы не в курсе. Это 9B. Это замаскированный форвардский поезд. Давайте найдем арку. Тут нету, между 9 и 10 нету. Нету прохода, нету арки. Вообще нету арок на 9 и 3/4. Танюхин, все выдумка. Все выдумка. Все выдумка. Между 9 и 10 платформой вообще нету стены. Представляете? Нету стены. Танюхин, прости. Вот мы, Наталья, я, Даник, вот Даник. Мы искали. Все.
Что, будем стоять, чтобы сфотографироваться?
Нет, наверное, нет.
Через 20 минут.
Что? Надо уехать, да? Вот. Танюха, доказательства несуществования. Они даже поэтому не сделали этот. Они не сделали это игрушечное.
Jubilee has 60th year on the throne. In fact, in February this year, only a couple of months ago, in early February, the Queen celebrated her Sapphire Jubilee, her 65th year on the throne. So she's been our Queen now for just over 65 years. Now there are two theories where Big Ben the Bell gets its name from. We don't know for certain which theory is correct or why it's called Big Ben, but the most likely theory is the first one being named after a man called Richard Benjamin Hall, who helped build Big Ben, who helped build the bell. The genius behind making Big Ben. Now they actually decided to name it after him, his middle name being Benjamin, Benjamin being his middle name, so they named it Big Ben. That's one theory. Another theory though, in my opinion, is actually named after a famous boxer. He was very popular back in the mid-19th century. Very famous boxer back then, huge man, very rarely lost a fight, adored by the nation, this man. His name was Benjamin Corns, and his nickname in the ring was Big Ben, so most likely named after him, a bit of a celebrity back in the mid-19th century. So as you go around Parliament Square here, you're going to see Nelson Mandela there to the left, Mahatma Gandhi there to the right-hand side as well, Abraham Lincoln here to the left-hand side, Mandela and Gandhi here to the right. You'll find loads of other statues around here as well. As you go around Parliament Square, you'll see coming up on the right William Gladstone, former Victorian Prime Minister, our Prime Minister during World War I, David Lloyd George. They're both coming up as well around the corner, coming up on the right-hand side. And then coming up on the right here in the far right-hand corner, you're going to see Sir Winston Churchill. There he is, our Prime Minister during most of World War II, and voted our greatest Briton ever a couple of years ago. There he is on the right, Sir Winston Churchill. You've got a fantastic view of Big Ben there in front of you as well, if you want to take your photos of Big Ben. To give you an idea of actually how large Big Ben's clock face is, the hour hand is 9 foot long, around 3 meters. The minute hand is 14 foot long, around 5 meters. In other words, pretty big, Big Ben's clock face. Over 23 feet in diameter. The clock tower itself is 320 feet high, and Big Ben only chimes on the hour. So in about half an hour's time, it will chime twice for 2 p.m.
It's pretty cool.
For a secret underground tunnel here underneath our feet, straight into the House of Commons. So that's how the politicians go from Portcullis House to House of Commons for work. So we're now going over Westminster Bridge for the second time on this tour. Look over your right hand shoulder there, got a fantastic view of the Houses of Parliament, also known as the Palace of Westminster. You've got County Hall here to the left hand side, where you'll find all the attractions like the aquarium, Shrek's Adventure, London Dungeon, and of course the London Eye there to the left as well. We're now coming up to our next stop. We're now coming up to our stop number 20 for Westminster Bridge. We're now turning right. This bus is now going west. So we're now going towards Westminster Abbey, Buckingham Palace, Victoria Station, and back up to our stop number 1 for Green Park. If you want to go east, to the right hand side here, you're going to see St Thomas's Hospital, named after the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas à Becket. Inside there you'll find the Florence Nightingale Museum. The Lady of the Lamp actually came to work here after her duties in the Crimean War and actually founded a nursing college inside there, which is still here to this day. If you want to go inside the Florence Nightingale Museum, there is a fee. It is well worth it if you're a fan of the Lady of the Lamp or want to learn more about the woman who revolutionised nursing throughout the Crimean War back in the mid-19th hospital after him. So we're now in Lambeth. Quite a few famous people are born here, including Charlie Chaplin. He was born here in Lambeth, a famous actor in the early 20th century. And even Simon Cowell was born here in Lambeth, a famous music producer, was the TV judge for reality talent shows like The X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, etc. He was born here in Lambeth. Lambeth Palace here to the left-hand side, where the Archbishop of Canterbury lives, the man who crowns all the kings and queens inside Westminster Abbey. So here we are. Here is our stop number 21 for Lambeth Palace area. Here we are, number 21 for Lambeth Palace and Vauxhall area. So we're now coming onto Lambeth Bridge. Lambeth Bridge is painted red to represent the red leather seating in the House of Lords on the right hand side. The other half there to the House of the Parliament. Got a fantastic view of Parliament there to the right as well. For any James Bond fans on board, listen up, because you'll see Vauxhall Bridge here to the left hand side. Just to the left of Vauxhall Bridge here in the left hand corner, you're going to see that cream coloured building with the dark green glass on top. In the left hand corner there, just to the left of Vauxhall Bridge, that's MI6, that's Military Intelligence 6. Just to the left hand corner there, right next to the Vauxhall Bridge, that small cream coloured building with a dark green glass on top is MI6. Deals with international security, that's why James Bond's always all over the world. MI5 there, just to the left hand side, a large grey colour building is MI5, Military Intelligence 5, that deals with national security. To the left here is the ICI building, Imperial Chemical Industries, and that's where they first made plastic and polystyrene and polythene back in the early 20th century, back in the 1920s. To the right hand corner, just behind these buildings, you're going to see the very tall Gothic looking tower just coming up on the right hand corner. You can't miss it, towering above everything around this area, the Victoria Tower, named after Queen Victoria, our second longest reigning monarch. You'll find all the laws that have been passed inside there since the 11th century. Over 3 million written laws are kept inside the Victoria Tower in the last 1,000 years. And here is our next stop. Here is our stop number 22 for Westminster area, for Parliament Square. Here we are, number 22 for Parliament Square. Nobody coming down. And you'll see the entrance there, the Victoria Tower, the dark red colour gateway to the right. That is the sovereign entrance, and that is where Her Majesty enters the House of Lords. That's where she does a yearly speech for the opening day of Parliament every 5th. He's the current Queen's grandfather. He was our king for 26 years, from 1910 until his death in 1936. Now 1936 is known as the year of the Three Kings, because obviously we had 3 kings in 1936. It started out with King George V, he was the king. He died in the beginning of 1936, and that's when his eldest son Edward became Edward VIII. He was king throughout most of 1936 until December 1936. He abdicated. Worth queuing because it really is a fantastic attraction. Loads of different people buried inside there. Charles Dickens, Charles Darwin, Rudyard Kipling, throughout the Jungle Book. Monarchs are buried inside there, including Mary I, Elizabeth I, King Charles II, who was the king during the Great Fire of 1666. And of course, quite a few famous royal weddings happened there as well. Back in 2011. Through that archway there, look over your left-hand shoulder, that's where Catherine Middleton walked through that archway to marry Prince William. And back in 1947, 70 years ago this year, that is where future queen back then, of course now our queen, Princess Elizabeth as she's known back then, marrying Prince Philip 70 years ago this year in Westminster Abbey. And here is our next stop. Here is our stop number 23 for Westminster Abbey and Westminster area. If you want to stay around this area, then please do get off here. So here we are, number 23 for Westminster. Horses for TfL, Transport for London. There to make sure that all the London transport, the underground, the Red London buses, everything really in London is running smoothly. Of course, millions of people use London's transport system every single day. So of course, it's quite a big responsibility to have for TfL. To the right here is Caxton Hall, and that is where Sir Winston Churchill did many of his wartime speeches throughout the Second World War. So Winston Churchill strongly believed that low morale loses war. So he did his inspirational speeches inside Caxton Hall just behind us during World War II, broadcast throughout the nation, and that's what partly won us World War II, high morale here in this country. To the left-hand side here, we're going to see St James's Court Crown Plaza Hotel, and that's where all the tennis stars used to stay, the Wimbledon tennis stars, and they come over here every summer for Wimbledon, the tennis championships. Of course, they still do come over around June, July time for the famous tennis competition. They don't stay here anymore though, they actually now stay in Chelsea area, to the west of London, not too far from Wimbledon itself. The reason why they changed it is because people actually were turning up late for matches when they were staying there, because it's quite far way out from here to Wimbledon, so they eventually decided to make the hotel closer to the venue. Inside there, the royal family have collected for centuries. A little bit further up on the right is the Royal Mews, where you'll see the Queen's horses in her carriages. You can go inside both of those at the moment. And here is our next stop. Here you see the Buckingham Palace shop. If you're a royalist, fan of the royal family, if you know anyone that's a royalist, that's a great place to go and buy a souvenir. You can get corgi cuddly dolls in the shapes of corgis, or umbrellas with the Queen's faces on them, and you get all that kind of stuff inside there. And here is our next stop here for the Royal Mews. It's just there to the right. Here's our stop number 25 for the Royal Mews. Nobody coming down. So as we go through these traffic lights here, we'll be coming up to the area known as Victoria. As soon as you go past these traffic lights, we're coming into Victoria area. Victoria, named after Queen Victoria, our second longest reigning monarch. She reigned...
12-й, дорогая, автобус.
Longest reigning Queen Regent in world history. So no woman in world history has reigned as long as Elizabeth II. Sadly passed away last year at the age of 64. So it's now been passed down to his eldest son, Hugh Grosvenor, is now the new owner of this area. And of course has inherited the Grosvenor fortune. Now Hugh Grosvenor is only a young man, he's only about 25 years old, and he's now the richest English man in Britain. He's worth around £9 billion. 9 billion! So he's not too short on cash, Hugh Grosvenor. And he owns this entire area, all the land he owns here, and parts of Maine.
That's right, you can't see Big Ben. Why not? Because it's the bell, correct. County Hall. Well, originally home to the GLC, the Greater London Council, although this was dismantled in the 1980s. Today, as you can see, there's a number of tourist attractions. You've got the London Dungeon, Shrek's Adventure, the Tate Modern Art Gallery. Now folks, it is free to visit the Tate Modern, okay, one of a few attractions in London that is free. So worth a visit, go inside, make your own minds up about modern art. Okay, there are some weird and wonderful exhibits on display. Have we got any modern art fans on board? No one. Explains why it's free. This is the Millennium Footbridge, one of London's newer crossings. Actually, you've got to wave at the people up on the bridge. Have you noticed it doesn't matter where you go in the world, if you're on a boat, people like to wave.
So what we're going to do, as you can see, that's Tower Pier over to the left. We're going to round now, we're going to give you a little side-on view of the Tower Bridge. A Tower Bridge, it was constructed in 1894. The only bridge in London worth pointing out. She was one of the most famous and most powerful naval ships in its day, and it helped sink a lot of German U-boats in World War II. Now, when we clear the Belfast, you're going to see a big building, looks a bit like a motorcycle helmet. Now this is City Hall, where City it stands for Warehouse at the Riverfront. Years ago, in the 80s and 70s, before the container ship arrived, cargo from all over the world would come to buildings like these. They'd unload their cargo into the buildings where it would be distributed around London and the UK. They're no longer working wharfs, they're just unaffordable housing. And you can find these, they line the River Thames all the way down to Greenwich. Now over to the right, can you see the pirate ship? Passing underneath now, the Southwark Road Bridge. One of the least used bridges in London, due to the narrow streets of the borough of Southwark and the City of London over on the left hand side. It's very hard to find. And if you look up there, most of the people that walk along the bridge are either lost or drunk, or both. Now over to the right, we've got one of the oldest pubs in London, the Anchor, built in the 1600s, it's over 400. William Shakespeare, Isaac Newton, and on the far right, the man with a football, that's David Beckham. Now you're going to get a very good view of St Paul's Cathedral over there. St Paul's Cathedral is Christopher Wren's masterpiece. The dome itself that you can see over there in the skyline, that took 12 years to build. The first one, they put the shape of their windows to the name of their company, and of a night they shine a big red light behind it and it shows up the words OXO. So at the moment, we were in the City of Westminster and we're just entering the City of London. And the official boundary for this is located over on the left hand side. This is known as Temple Arch. It's worth pointing out that we've just entered the smallest capital city in the world. On the underneath of the bridge you can see it's very dirty, and if you compare the outside to the underneath, you'll see it's very clean. This is because when it rains, the bridge gets a thorough cleaning. It's also worth pointing out the bridge was constructed on time and under budget, so well done ladies. Now over to the right, the building looks a bit like a model, and that is the Bakerloo and City line. There's also two Golden Jubilee walkways that you can walk from South Bank to the Victoria Embankment. Now if you're wondering what South Bank is, this is the walkway which you can walk all the way from Westminster all the way down to Tower Pier. On the way you'll come across things like the Royal Festival Hall. This is the last remaining festival hall from the Festival of Great Britain in 1951. Many famous people have played here, such as Elvis.
Проверим, есть.